Hello, everybody. Come on, you can do louder than that. Oh, yay. My name is Meg Linton. I'm the CEO of the Newport Beach Public Library Foundation. And I'm really excited that we're all here together tonight. And we're kind of going to go on a journey with the Fletcher family. And so before we do, you like to always meet your neighbors when you're going on a journey and your fellow travelers. So please turn to somebody you don't know and introduce yourself. I know. Well, it's good. It sounds like everybody likes each other, so we're off to a good start. Okay, so a little business before we get started. Please silence your cell phones. We are recording tonight's program. We make all of our programs available either through video recording or through a podcast online through our website. So if you want to, watch this moment again, you'll be able to do so. We also have just a couple announcements for the foundation. One of them is, how many of you have heard that we have a proposal before City Council for a new lecture hall? Good. Well, I hope you're all in favor of it. And we have a request because you may have seen some back and forth opposition and those kinds of things. So the City Council meeting is on Tuesday, November 19th. And we're asking people to show up at 6:45 p.m. to show their support, and we really need bodies to fill the room. So if you guys have that night free and you want to come show your pride for the library, please show up, because it would be fabulous if we could get a new facility that has raked seating and all the latest technology. The other thing I'd like to ask is, how many of you are foundation members? Excellent. So I want to thank you all for helping us make tonight's program possible. So your membership helps support these kinds of programs and activities that we do at the library, in addition to our fabulous sponsors who we have listed on the rack card in the back for the event, and in our bookmark magazine that you can pick up. And in particular, I want to thank our board member, Natasha Palmer, and her husband, Todd, for being one of our lead sponsors for tonight's program. It takes a village to produce these evenings, and we can't do it without our Library Live committee. And Nancy Dalfors is here, and she's the one who organizes. Raise your hand, Nancy. She's the one who helps with her committee members, who are all volunteers. They help organize our Library Live series, and we couldn't do it without them. I also want to thank all of you for being here tonight, our audience, because you're the curious and interested ones who show up and want to learn more about surfing history in our community. And so I really thank you for your presence. So tonight we're here to experience the Fletcher family and their lifetime in surf. To help us introduce our guests, we've invited Christi Van Doren Batson, who is the Senior Director of Events and Promotions for Vans. Like the Fletchers, the Van Doren family is a part of surfing history, beginning with her grandfather in 1966, with the founding of the Van Doren Rubber Sole Company. The Van Dorens and the Fletchers are longtime friends, and we're thrilled to have Christi here tonight to welcome the Fletchers to the Newport Beach Public Library. So Christi, come on up.
Hi, everybody. I know I'm a little loud, so I want to make sure that I don't scare you guys. It's a pleasure to introduce Dibi and Herbie Fletcher. Although I may not be as well acquainted with them as I am with their sons, Nathan, Christian, and their grandson, Grayson, I believe I've known them for most of my life. My grandfather, Paul, and his brother, Jimmy, who started Vans, started to buy Hawaiian print fabrics from Dibi's father, Mr. Hoffman, I call him, at Hoffman Fabrics. And now my father, Steve, continues this relationship to this day. See, Christian used to write for Vans in the late 90s, early 2000s. Nathan's been and continues to be one of our seated class heroes for 20 years with Vans. This brings families together at many events shared with our mutual love of the surf and skateboard culture. Grayson's talented on any board he steps on. He started announcing at the Vans Pro Skate Park Series, where you can find my dad flipping burgers for those up-and-coming young rippers. What started with a few small family-owned businesses has spread our culture and lifestyle around the globe. The Fletchers are a pivotal family in the skateboard and surf industry. I'm glad to have been part of it and share some incredible journeys with the Fletchers. Now please give me a warm welcome and introduce Herbie and Dibi Fletcher and their amazing book, The Fletcher Family, A Lifetime in Surf.
Okay, I guess, I am mic'd. This has been a real journey for us. I ran away from home with Herbie when I was 16 years old, and next month we'll be celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary.
Yeah. 50 years.
And I think having this book come out at this time is kind of a testament to that. It's about a family, and all of us have one, the good, bad, and different, that we all experience. But we're telling it through surf. And so we brought a slideshow to kind of show you some of them so you can be familiar with the lineage that we're involved in. And this first picture here is my father, Walter. I believe it's 1948. That surfboard was the first surfboard ever to be made with aerospace materials. It took the board from 100 pounds to 45 pounds and opened up the world of surfing to the world we know today. Him at Makaha. I believe this is about 1950.
Yeah, Walter was the first one who rode big waves at Makaha. And he taught a lot of people how to ride big waves. Rabbit Cake Kai was the first one to surf Makaha when it was small, but Walter and his friends from California took it into the big wave riding. And he also won the tandem event. In those days, tandem was a big deal with a partner.
Well, in those days, surfing was really about the lifestyle. It was about going to the beach and playing the ukulele and going tandem. It wasn't about competition. It was about friends all going and having a good time together. This is my dad getting a trophy at the Makaha Surf Championships with his partner, Joni Jones. And I believe the next picture is Duka Hanamoko giving him the trophy with Miss Makaha. That's my sister, Joyce Hoffman, who went on to become, I think she was like the 3 times women's world champion in the 1960s. And this is a picture of her with her own surf model surfboard. She was the first woman to ever have her own model. And that's in front of our house on Beach Road in Capistrano Beach. I believe that's probably
64, 65.
64, know.
Yeah, 64.
Who knows?
Look at the bikini.
Oh, my mom made all her bathing suits. This is her and my dad. My mom made all my sister's bathing suits. My dad he went to work for his father that had started with the Hoffman Woolens. And when my dad came back from from being stationed in Hawaii during the Korean War, he went to work for my grandfather's company. And he started doing the Aloha prints. And so my mom made all my sister's bathing suits, and my dad became one of the largest suppliers of printed textiles to the surf industry for 35 years.
And here's Tricia, her mother, putting on Joyce's helmet at the Huntington Beach Surf Contest, sponsored by Coca-Cola back in, 65, I believe it was, when they made us wear helmets. And here she is, she's stylish. She had a lot of style, and she was one of the women that brought style to surfing.
I just did an interview with her, and it was very interesting. I asked her. I said she went on the dating game. What's My Line? She was one of the Times newspaper 12 Women of the Year. She transcended surfing into kind of contemporary culture, and I asked her, why do you think that happened with you? And she said it was the perfect time. Endless Summer had just been produced, and it took surfing out all over the world and made it something so exciting. She goes, I got good grades. I had blonde hair. I was the right look. It was the right time. And so I thought that was very interesting. She was sponsored by Triumph Cars. She she kind of went out into a bigger, broader thing and brought surfing out into a larger world than just surfing.
This is me at Huntington Pier in 1963 or 2. I don't know. Maybe 1. I was a little kid. I was 13, so yeah.
Okay.
And then this photo here, I wasn't the first to skate a pool, but I was the first one to have a photograph. You can see there's other names there. But in this photo, I made this skateboard, and I put clay wheels on it because I grew up in Huntington Beach, and I cut a skate. There was a skating rink on the Huntington Pier called the Pavilion. And so my best friend and I went down and bought a pair of skates, and we cut them in half and put the first clay wheels on a skateboard. I made the skateboard. I'm barefooted with my surf team jacket on, Jack Haley's surf team.
He loves that photo.
But it says, the pool.
He loves that photo.
Yeah. And this is Pipeline in 1965 doing the side slip boogie on a longboard. And this is a Phil Edwards model that Corky Carroll got me sponsored by Hobie, and it really made my day, gave me a job.
So we go from my dad's board of 45 pounds, and in his world of surfing, it was all about trimming. They got in the wave and they rode to the beach. In Herbie's generation, it was about getting back in the tube. The boards have gotten smaller, they're more streamlined, and the whole idea was to get farther and farther back in a more critical position.
That's my board beat up at Honolulu Bay on Maui. I'd patch it every night because we didn't have leashes in those days to connect to your foot. A little soul action.
He loves that photo.
Well, this is when we were making the film A Free and Easy by Greg McGilvery and Jim Freeman. You probably heard of Greg McGilvery. And
He went on to do all the IMAX movies.
And so, you know, it was early days. We were kids, and Greg went on to be really successful and do so many IMAX movies. Can't even believe he did it. That's another photo by him and just having a good time. And there's my wife, Dibi, and I at the beach when we met.
We met at Makaha. I think I was 13, 14 years old. Herbie was looking for his surfboard. He still is.
Yeah, that's Makaha
There's two idiots. Look at those two.
And the 60s went on. This is like 69.
Art Brewer took this photo in front of our house on the beach of Pupukea. And he lived next door to us with John Severson, who had discovered Surfer magazine.
That's just cruising down the beach with my trunks that my wife made. Dibi made those trunks.
Your wife, I know.
Okay. I just got out of the shaping room there and carrying the Christian.
This is a beautiful photo by Jeff Devine with Jerry Lopez and Barry Kanayapuni. And if you notice that there's no footprints on the sand, and this is Sunset Beach. And so it captured a time. There was no surfers really around at that time. It was a whole different world. There was no real companies that were really there was a few of them, but it wasn't like it is now. There was no sponsorship. It was kind of this idea, it's almost like that kind of Gauguin dream of going to Tahiti. This is a photo by Art Brewer in 1976.
Correct.
And that's at Malaya.
Yeah, that's the fastest wave in the world at that time. Still, I think. But going fast. Did you notice the flying saucer in the background?
This was a sign on the Herbie Fletcher Surf Shop when we did Herbie Fletcher surfboards in Dana Point in 1976. Yeah, cute, huh? God, how nice to be young. It's been a while. This is Herbie with Nathan skating in front of our house. And I posted this picture online, and people were saying, oh my God, that's like child abuse. And you're going, that's like really fun. You notice it's cloth diapers? That's how old it is.
Hey, he's still skateboarding too.
That's Christian and Nathan in front of our house.
And this is a photo of me at Malibu that Jeff Devine took in 6, I believe it is. Not too many people around that day. And this was the first tow in. This is Tommy Carroll, a world champion at the time. He was the third guy towed in on big waves. But this was the start of it. And you could see I have the stand-up jet ski, not the big couches that they ride out there. And he was taking out people. And then I started making videos, and I make the pads that go on the tails for traction. And so this was a photo shoot of movies that I did called Wave Warriors.
If you wanted to surf, you had to figure out how to create a revenue stream for yourself so you could still stay in the water. So Herbie is kind of this mad scientist. So he says, oh, I can do this, or I can do that. And so when he did Astroduck, nobody was interested in it. So he put it in the back of his car. He drove up and down the coast. He went to every surf shop. He talked to all the professional surfers. He put it on their boards. And then he started making movies because we didn't have the money to advertise. So he said, well, and Dibi, I'm really working. See, I got to go to the beach and take these movies.
The surf's up.
And I'm thinking, oh, okay, that sounds great, honey, right? And so he ended up making all these surf movies that in retrospect, it was kind of this new thing. Now everybody has a GoPro and makes their own movies and has an iPhone and everything else. But at this time, nobody did that. It was all on film. You had to take the film up to Hollywood to have it transferred. It was a big production. It was a lot of work. And so he ended up doing all these movies that now you kind of look at it and go, at the time, you didn't think it was much. I thought he just didn't want to go to work. He didn't.
What I was doing was making movies with the best surfers and the best surf so I could teach the kids, to put in a video, because you went and saw surf movies. And you'd come home and then get up the next morning and the surf's flat. But if you had a surf video, you could actually watch it and then go surfing. And so I'd get them back, videos back, and certain people's sections would be worn out, whoever the favorite surfer was. That's another shot at the pipeline with all the guys and buttons in the front.
It's kind of interesting to think that doing those videos, it got all the surfers that rode for all sorts of different companies, it put them all together as a tribe, and it was about surfing instead of about kind of a company. And so it was kind of interesting to do these. When you see them now, you see all the different logos from everybody, but they all came together as surfers. And I think that was really kind of an interesting thing. And so we've started doing these photo shoots again to get all the surfers together. They're not stuck in their corporate houses, but they all come together as kind of a tribe. And I think that's really a great thing.
And when these things were done, we didn't have telephones, no cell phones. This was 1985.
So the point was to try to get those guys all together.
Oh,
was
you had to
herding
herd 'em.
cats.
Yeah.
We owned the house at Pipeline with Jerry Lopez. When that photo was taken, that's the front yard. And it's become one of the most famous houses in surf called the Pipe House. And so Herbie's jet ski is there, and that's Christian and Nathan when they're young.
We were down there surfing. And that's me jumping over the house.
Oh, Dibi, I'm working. I'm at the office.
Everybody else was on the beach. It was a big day that day. This is off the wall. Nose riding it off the wall.
This photo was in Esquire magazine about beach culture, and I had gone fishing. Herbie took me fishing in Cabo, the only time I've ever been fishing, and I caught that fish, and he was so proud of me. He had it stuffed. I thought, oh my God, it's so awful, so I painted it. I made the couch. I had the kids. I said, this is kind of a thing, right? But I think
she set it all up.
But I think it's kind of an interesting way to look at surf because I think we're a family, and all these years together, and you end up with Bruce Weber and Julian Schnabel in Montauk at Andy Warhol's estate.
It was his fish camp. There's a lot of fish out there too.
I mean, we've got to do a lot of fun things. That's Herbie and Julian Schnabel at the MetLife with a bunch of paintings that Julian did from Herbie's photographs.
We did a collaboration, and they were 15 by 20 feet. 8 of them during Christmas time, so the Christmas tree was up and the escalators were going, and there was
big surf paintings.
Yeah, 8 of them. I mean, on marble walls, had never been done before. And this is after we went to Jaws and took photos, came back. Bruce Irons had just won the Eddie contest, so we had to hang out with Dennis Hopper and take a photo, right? And Kelly Slater and Julian and I.
That's an artwork that Herbie does, and he calls it a painting, and it's called A Case of Arrows. The name Fletcher means arrow maker. That's what a Fletcher was. And so Herbie has used that as a logo always, and because he's also American Indian, it kind of made this idea of that Fletcher as an arrow maker. And so this is called A Case of Arrows. And this is one of the Archipelago series that I like a lot. It's made out of foam, fiberglass, and resin. So he's taken traditional surfboard building materials and created a new vocabulary with it by making these pieces. And I like that a lot. I was a stone sculptor. You can't find any friends when you ask them to move an 8,000-pound stone. These things are like 40 pounds, so your friends still show up.
That's a resin painting that I did of Bruce Irons at sunrise, behind the wave underwater. You could see the sun coming through the valley. Oh, that's my idea anyway. And that's a picture of me cutting back at trestles during the fires. You can see how orange it is, right? During the fire season, I don't know how many years ago, about 5 years ago.
And that's Christian. Enough said.
There he is also in Cabo, surfing, trying to do a cheater 5.
It was so fun to take them. That, like somebody said, well, how did your kids surf? I said they did it just like they walked. You just take them, and what boy doesn't want to go outside and have fun? So it was so easy for them to just roll into this stuff. It was just like walking. This is an Annie Leibovitz photo that she did with Malcolm McLaren, who started the Sex Pistols, and Christian. It's become one of the 100 most important photos of the 20th century, and it's called Blue Boy. I think that was the end of him. I think having the pink hair and the blue, I think he kind of, after that.
Purple
See?
was his favorite.
I mean, there you go.
This is logo, yeah. Then he started all this stuff, flying in the air and landing. Look, he crossed out his face.
Christian was the first person to really do aerials like in surf contests. And at that time, it was considered not surfing. So isn't that interesting? 30 years later, unless you have a huge repertoire of aerials, you're not going to move anywhere, right? And you go, it's very interesting when you bring something new. People don't like change. They like things that makes them feel comfortable. And so they're very afraid of change. And so they wanted to get rid of surfing, get rid of Christian. And he was helpful because he couldn't keep his mouth shut, I have to say, right? He could have done a better job. But it's very interesting to see how surfing has changed in the last 25, 30 years.
That was the first sailfish. Everybody at the magazine thought it was a sailfish.
Well, he took the moves from skateboarding, and that's where this kind of marriage and skateboarding comes along. He took the moves from skateboarding and took them into the ocean.
With this purple wetsuit.
And so because he and Nathan always skated, that you can go out and practice something in a wave where it changes all the time. It's more difficult, but if you have that that stable center that you can practice this stuff, you can get really good, and so he did that, but it wasn't considered surfing at the time.
Nathan's playing the guitar in the background.
Christian had this mohawk, and he'd tell Nathan, you got to help me, you know, you got to pull my hair up with this, with a vacuum.
There's
And Nathan
Christian
would look
Soy.
at me, long-suffering Nathan would just go, oh my God, could you do his hair?
That's Christian and Christian.
Christian Soy and Christian Fletcher.
Beautiful style, huh? Skateboarding. Up in the wires. But Christian took it to the water.
This is a Bruce Weber photograph. Christian also kind of transcended surfing and got into kind of this whole pop culture. Because all the magazines wanted to come and photograph him, all the famous photographers from Annie Leibovitz to Bruce Weber, and so it took it out to Interview magazine and Details magazine and all these other things. So he kind of went out from surfing into a broader market. This is a Versace shoot. Bruce Weber used to love to get me to get these guys on, get them to all these different shoots, right? That's Christian with his son Grayson.
And Eddie Radke had to share the cover with Christian. Christian's surfing, doing an aerial. That's Eddie Radke skating a pipe. There's Christian in France with that little board, grabbing the nose. I still don't see people do that today.
Nathan.
Nathan's always been a big wave charger. And there he is. He got a brand new Jerry Lopez gun, 8-foot gun when he was 10 years old.
Nathan was a snowboarder. He was a motocross racer. For a long time, he didn't surf. He found it very difficult being Christian's brother. And so he put on a helmet so he could go out motocross racing because he said there was an anonymity in it. There was a finish line. It didn't matter that he was Christian's brother. And I think he really needed to go do that to find out who he was himself. And he did it for a few years, right? And then he came back and said, you know, I am a surfer. It doesn't matter who Christian is. It matters who I am. And I thought that that was kind of an interesting way for a young man to find himself.
That's surfing.
That's surfing. That's surfing.
Chiopu.
That's a Brian Bielman photo. So with Rizzoli, when I was working with them, they said, well, we don't want to put this book in this photo in the book because it's kind of got haze. I said, when the surf is 35 foot, there's atmosphere. There's atmosphere.
And it was raining in the background,
and
right?
so you go, print the photo.
Yeah, he's still alive.
And he's still alive.
And there's a new one coming.
And the beat goes on. So Nathan's just, he's in a new documentary right now called Heavy Water. And it's going to play in December in LA, and it's going to play for 10 days, so it can be put into the Academy Awards for Best Documentary. And it's really a story. It's not so much, yes, it's a story about surfing, and it's about him jumping out of a helicopter into a wave. But it's also a story, a couple of his friends have passed away, right? And as he has these young kids, it's him kind of coming to grips with, do I still need to do this? Is this what's best for me, what's best for my family? And so it's kind of coming into his own manhood. It's an interesting story. The visuals are beautiful. It's giant, big wave riding. And so it will be playing in December in LA. This is Grayson.
So he didn't stand a chance.
You notice he has the wetsuit, the skateboard, right? He's ready for anything. This is him with John and Nathan and Ivan Florence and Ford Archibald. Nathan said that's what's wrong with him.
So we took him skating, take him to the beach surfing. Got his Vans on and his Vans logo, and he started maturing.
This is him in Spain. And as a skateboarder, they really have the opportunity. Somebody said, well, did they just skate like domestically? Grayson's had the opportunity to travel the world because there's cement everywhere. And so he has gotten the opportunity. He's traveled the world a couple of times, and how nice for him as a young man to be able to do this.
Yeah, this is after we went to the Prado. That's a signature move right there.
Okay, he had this long beard, long hair.
want-
I hated that frickin' beard. You know, God, it was ugly. But not to let that stop me, so I hashtagged him the wizard. It stuck, right? I said, don't screw around with me, Grayson. When you do something I don't like, I'm just going to use it and I'm going to market it, and that's how it's going to go. And so anyway, so then he was stuck with this thing, and he just cut it off the other day. He cut off his beard, he cut off his hair, right? Because he says, it weighs 25 pounds when I go surfing. I was waiting, but I didn't say a word, and now he's all clean shaven.
And here he is skateboarding in sandals at a place on the North Shore of Velzeland called Sheepside. It was do-it-yourself. Everybody pitched in and made walls and ramps and
Yeah, but it's another
corners.
kind of thing, how surfing and skating, they're not different. They're the same. Here we are, the happy little family. Kind of the Addams family of surf.
And these are more recent wavewear shoots.
And this is one of the latest pieces Herbie does, and it's called a rectangle. All these boards were ridden by the greatest surfers and all broken at the pipeline. And I think that to end this, it's kind of what surf has become. It's kind of broken and it's fractured with all the companies and everything else. And some of that dream from my dad's generation has certainly been lost. Surfing as surfing will always be a lifestyle. Surfing as a sport has changed dramatically. And I think that it's part of the commentary about what our everyday life is like now. And so I think that this piece, he's done quite a few of these, and they've become a signature piece. Say a lot about the contemporary world of surf.
I guess that's it.
I don't know how to do
Here,
this.
give it to me.
So, anybody want to ask anything?
Any questions?
Yes? What's the role of female surfers in surfing today as professional surfers? I think that they're going after the same money as all the men get. There's a real push for that. As far as girls surfing, there's more girls surfing now than ever before. They have different tours now for the women than they do for the men. There's a big wave riding tour, and they are now getting paid the same amount as the men are getting paid.
Some of them are. They're making up. And they're surfing incredible. The women surfing is just really incredible.
Yes?
Yeah. I haven't surfed a wave pool in a long time, but I've watched a lot of them. I just go in the ocean. You know, I can't sit around and wait for, I don't know, a half an hour for a wave or, you know, just hang out. But I think it's a double-edged sword. I really like it, but I'm sort of waiting for them to get bigger they're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And somebody asked me, do you think man's ridden the biggest wave yet? And I told them, I don't think so. Man hadn't made the biggest wave. They're going to make big waves. Got to. Technology's coming.
I think it's a different sport.
Yeah, it is. Way
I mean, I think it's a disadvantage to a lot of people if it's part of the tour, because there's a lot of surfers that are so big, they're never going to perform as well in it. And I think it's monotonous to watch. So I think, yes, they can turn the wave on at a certain time so they get TV rights, but the unintended consequence is it's so boring, who cares?
They took the sand out of it.
Right. Yes? They were selling the dream. They were selling the dream. And so that's what I'm saying. Surfing as surfing is way different than surfing as the industry. The industry is about competition surfing and a lot of other things. But surfing as a lifestyle is something that's kind of magic. It is that kind of Gauguin dream about going to Tahiti. And I think that that's what Bruce Brown and John Severson were able to kind of package and put across to the public.
They did it great. Yeah. Endless Summer is still one of my favorite.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dibi, I just wanted to ask, could you talk a little bit about the book and how the book was put together? Because when we were talking earlier, you mentioned some great things about the layout and what you were thinking about.
The book was fun to, okay, I got to deal with Rizzoli. Kind of weird, but whatever. But when I started to think about putting it together, I thought about kind of doing it through a generation. So it would have kind of a linear format so you could follow it. And Herbie likes to jump around back and forth. That confuses me, and I want to kind of have my eyes rolled back in my head. But anyway, so I did it in a linear format. And then I started thinking about other people that we have spoken to, like Mike D from the Beastie Boys. They learned how to make videos from Herbie, right? And so I thought it'd be interesting to have him write something. Herbie and Christian used to go on trips with Robert Trujillo from Metallica, and so we got him to write something. So there was these people that were out of surf that had something to say because of the love they had for surfing. And I thought that was kind of fun. And so when we have hundreds of thousands of photos, and to kind of go through and try to edit what I thought would kind of carry this story along, it was 100,000 photos. You got, well, how do I edit this, right? How do I still keep it a powerful story that's worth telling through photos? Because there isn't a lot of writing. They only wanted me to write like 2,000 words per character. How do you write about Christian in 2,000 words? Well, he was a kid that you put the playpen upside down on him, right? I said, oh, that kind of says a lot, in 2 sentences. That says a lot about him. And so I thought that was kind of a fun way to talk about these guys, to say something kind of short and tight, but to have enough photos to fill out who they are. There's a picture with Christian with a giant black mohawk, and Nathan was with his little blonde hair and his hat. I said that picture tells so much about them and their characters. Nathan's very kind of quiet and retiring, and Christian has a mohawk, right? And he's completely green with tattoos. And so there was photos that I thought were interesting. Some of them Rizzoli. There was things that I wanted to use that were like old ads and things like this. They were very, they said, well, we like to have it very high grade. I think that becomes boring if you look at it. It becomes like another surf book. I want it so your eyes have to focus and refocus. And I wanted pieces of history that were interesting. It didn't have to be perfect. My history's not perfect. It's filled with a lot of flaws, right? and whose isn't? And I said, and I think to do that and to represent our family as that, I think that's what makes it interesting.
Wow. Well, pipeline's my favorite, and back door and off the wall, right there in front of the house. Yeah. But I also like Honolulu, Malaya, and Honolulu, and there's a few on Kauai that it has its spots. And then you go to Indonesia and all that other stuff.
Yes?
There was guys that went out there and tried. I don't know what happened to them, but now they. I tried body surfing.
Their boards were too big. The boards were too big.
And there's all kinds of kids. Both my sons love it, the wedge, and they surf it whenever it breaks. And my grandson surfs it all the time. That's the only place he likes to go surfing because it's so. It's a beach break right next to the beach, but it just slams you. So he likes to get slammed. He's a skateboarder. He likes it shallow and close to the beach.
Yes? San Clemente. That's home base. The kids did have to go to school sometimes. And Herbie did pretend to work, right? It's great if your job is surfing, though. It makes life really simple. Oh, Dib, I'm going to work. He's got his board underneath his arm. I said, oh, great.
Well, that's what Nathan does, right, Christi? I mean, he works every day. He said that's his responsibility.
Yes.
Rivermouth? Yeah, the west side. Oh, yeah. Well, before they put you mean Corona del Mar? Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories. I never surfed it. I've seen little waves there, but I always went down south to Trestles. But Lauren Harrison Whitey, who used to hang out with the Duke, he'd tell me stories that they'd just leave their old wooden surfboards there, and he'd walk from Laguna and meet Duke Hanamoko down there, and they'd all surf. And that was before they put in the jetty. And he'd rescue boats coming in the harbor there that didn't know how to navigate through the inlet, because there were sandbars that would build up, and so they'd have to go rescue guys there off the boats. And pretty interesting talk. It was great to hear some old stories from, that was like from the 20s and 30s.
That was before our time, wasn't it?
I thought you were 160.
You're right. I'm well preserved. Yes?
Oh, okay. Buttons was the guy standing in the front, and he was like this in one of those
It's his
wave
name.
warriors.
It was his nickname.
Yeah, it's a long Hawaiian name that I can't pronounce. And then a tow-in is using a jet ski and towing somebody behind you on a surfboard and towing them into a big wave.
A personal watercraft that you use to tow in a surfer.
In the big waves.
And
that's, I started doing that back in the 80s and towing the guys in the outside reefs. But before that, you didn't know the reefs. I mean, because you didn't go out there. And there was so much water. I mean, the waves are bigger than this room. And so there's a lot of water moving, and the reefs and the currents and everything. And so being on a ski, you can get around and you can learn how it breaks, because one wave will break a little further north than the other one, and they keep on going down the line. And so you get to know it. Having a jet ski out there, you can go around and check them out and get experiences.
It gave you access to ride waves that you could not paddle into. You couldn't paddle in fast enough to get into the waves. So with that motor towing you in, it gave that surfer the opportunity to ride waves that had never been ridden before.
And now they paddle into them because they've learned about all the reefs, and so they started paddling into those big waves, and it's crazy what they can do nowadays. Well, you saw some of the photos up there. Crazy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it goes and
Yes, it's very eroded now. Yes. And I think that's because they changed so much with the jetties and everything else and all the building that they do, right? And it changes the riverbeds, it changes the water flow, and so it changes the coastline. Absolutely. Yes?
yeah, the big wave over there, Nazare. What do I think of it?
At least.
I think the guys that ride it are incredible, and it's unbelievable to watch. Oh, it's an adrenaline rush. Just even thinking about it and getting ready to go, that's probably heavier than riding it.
I think it's more like mountain climbing or something like that. It's so extreme, right? But it put that little place on the map, so it changed all those people's life in Portugal, right? And now they've got Mercedes-Benz sponsoring it and all this. It's been very interesting to watch it. But there's a couple of riders. A lot of these guys weren't surfers to start with. A lot of these big wave riders. They're big wave riders. They get towed in and they stand there, and so it's not the same as a guy that's paddling in and surfing and churning and doing all these things. A lot of these guys were not surfers. They're strapped into the boards and they tow in, and it's a completely different sport, I think. Yes? It wasn't my deal, it was theirs. Yeah, but it's still a situation that they have to deal with, right? I can tell them, oh, you got to be nice, you got to share and all that stuff as a parent. They're the ones that have to work that out. And it took them some time, but now they're the best of friends. It did take them a long time, but it was their issue to work out, not mine. I'd like to control everything. I'm kind of that way. Good luck. Right? It keeps me up at night. And so I'm trying to say, Dibi, you just got to let go, right? And so it was kind of their issue. I see it with my two grandsons, the two little ones, them fighting about things and stuff. It's going to be their issue to deal with the sibling rivalry that they have. Yes? I think it's fantastic.
It's fun.
Yeah, no,
You got drive.
I think,
You know, it's like-
but life is a risk, whether it's business. And so I think if they learn how to jump in, as long as they have some sort of understanding. See, Christian jumped over his head right away. Nathan, I watched him, and he was much more methodic about how he did it. He would go a little bit, then push himself a little farther, then push himself a little farther. Christian jumped over his head right away. And Christian's, that's who he is. It's his personality, right? But I think risk-taking, I took a risk, I wrote a book. You know, I ran away from home at 16. I guess I'm a risk-taker. You know, and so I think that that's good. It pushes you into, you're out of your comfort zone. That's a great thing for you. I think that makes you expand as a person. Yes?
I'm still surfing it. I haven't given up yet.
He hasn't come to that point yet.
No, not third reef. First reef.
Yes?
With the kids, but I'm out there.
Yes? I don't know him. I did read his book, though. I did. Yeah, yes, of course. I thought it was great. Yes? Joyce still serves. And I see her on the weekends. We go down to my dad's house. My dad is, my mom has Alzheimer's, and my dad is getting elderly, and I go
He's
see.
89.
No, he's 88. Don't push him.
88?
Yes. You know. But
88.
anyway, but I see, and so I see them every single weekend, right? And my dad still goes to work every day. I think probably the rest of the siblings aren't that thrilled that he's there, but that's their issue, not mine, right? But my sister still surfs all the time, and she does stand-up paddle.
I just made her a surfboard.
I don't see them much anymore. No, some of them you've kind of lost touch with, right? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.